Um, Welcome to this episode of Law Insights by the Jamani-Law Institute. And today we are going to take a deep dive into a new law that is being proposed in the Parliament of Uganda, the marriage bill of 2024. This bill is aimed at uh, consolidating all the laws relating to marriage and divorce in Uganda. The law is supposed to repeal the old laws relating to the celebration and the rights, duties, and obligations acquired within upon people entering into a marriage contract. So previously, Uganda's law provided for civil marriage and customary marriage, and some marriages considered uh, under specific religious celebrations. For instance, the Hindu marriages, the Islamic marriages under the Mohammedan Act, under the Mohammedan law, and so these were the main main marriage categories within recognized under Uganda's law, marriage law. So there was a specific act also relating to divorce, providing for how a divorce would be, how a petition for divorce would be made within the country, separation, and all those other factors that affect parties within divorce proceedings, and of course, specifically sharing of property, custody of children, maintenance, alimony, and all those other duties and rights upon separation. Now, many people in Uganda do not fully appreciate the fact that marriage is a contract. It is a contract at the base of it, although, as the new bill actually notes, the traditional understanding of marriage in civil society in Uganda was premised either from a religious standpoint or a customary traditional standpoint. So, for instance, when you refer to Christian marriages, these marriages are predominantly supposed to be monogamous because they follow the biblical teachings that uh, that mandate marriage between one man and one woman. Uh, and now on the inverse, when you look at the other religions like Islam, where there's a potential for polygamy, and then several other marriages that are either not expressly stated that they're monogamous, or they can accommodate the potential for polygamy. So the new bill, at the core of it, first wants to um, streamline the recognized marriages in Uganda. So the fundamental, I would say, the key takeaway and the key highlight from this categorization is the split between civil marriages and Christian marriages. So the state, because all marriages, when you look at the understanding under the old law of marriages, the current law of marriages in Uganda, all marriages were civil marriages, and civil marriages had a superiority over any other marriage because the state has the right to marry people. and all other marriages are conducted upon the authority and power of the state, vested on different registrars and officiants of marriages recognized by the state. But now, within this act, uh, one of the issues, because the themes of the new bill, of the new law, one of them was equality. And inequality, equality in marriages, equality in marriage rights and duties. So the first thing they did was to split civil marriages as a separate category of marriages. Interestingly, that would, under the current under the proposed law, be polygamous, potentially polygamous. So that would mean that uh, any person in Uganda can contract several civil marriages, yeah, either within a particular area or in different parts of Uganda. Now, the monogamy is now under the law is now only restricted to um, Christian marriages expressly. Yeah, so if you celebrate your marriage in church in a Christian setting, then that marriage is monogamous. So, and if you were to contract a monogamous marriage, then you are you are barred from contracting any other marriage. Interestingly, now the law has now introduced a provision where two parties can agree to convert their marriage from a monogamous marriage to a polygamous marriage. That is quite interesting. So, to see how that is going to work out, I would really want to see how that works out for some people. So, if you contract a monogamous marriage under the new law, you can agree to convert it into a polygamous marriage. Or if you contract a polygamous marriage, a potentially polygamous marriage, which is civil or any other marriage or Islam, you can choose to convert it into a monogamous marriage. So, of course, we will see how that will work out. And of course, the law comes from also still going by the theme of equality in marriage. The law goes ahead to, I would say, specifically codify decisions or positions of the law that have been made in the past by courts in Uganda relating to a return of dowry, the demand for return, especially in customary marriages, where some people have been seen to demand for the return of uh, marriage gift or bride price given to a bride upon dissolution or divorce. So, in the act, it is now criminal to even demand for a return of bride price. And there's so many peculiar things in the act that, to be honest, every person in a marriage in Uganda, any person intending to enter into a marriage, and any person that is within a family setting. So for anybody, it would be important for every person in Uganda to understand what the law is providing for, because there are so many crimes, so many dynamics, and most of them are progressive. And of course, there's been a lot of outcry for these provisions to be in the laws in Uganda. So marriage has gone back to, in my opinion, the rules of marriage have been more or less uh, recodified. Hmm? And the focus of marriage being a contract is very prominent in the law. So when you look at several provisions of the law, even so from the beginning, even when you promise to marry someone. So engagements have now been placed within the act by an offense created in the law. So the breach of promise to marry. So that particular provision allows a party that has been promised to marry, that has promised that has experienced some kind of loss, quantifiable loss. Of course, it could be loss relating to uh, emotion and also expenses, real expenses, including engagement rings, gifts given in the anticipation of marriage and for the purpose of marriage. Someone can seek to a refund of those gifts, and also seek for damages for breach of promise to marry. So people, couples should be very wary in accepting proposals, accepting to marry people and not marrying them eventually. Uh, and also the law has provided for mandatory premarital counseling for all couples. So for a marriage to be valid, you must undergo premarital counseling on top of the bans, the advertisement of the marriage notice. Interestingly, the law has now also empowered a waiver of the notice to marry. So under the law, you cannot marry until a notice to marry has been issued for at least 21 days. So the registrar can also waive that requirement if the couples declare that there is no impediment to the marriage. Now, but you see, the law goes ahead to provide for specific requirements of marriage, and in that regard, classify what are void marriages and voidable marriages. Now, void meaning it's a legal term, but it basically means the marriage did not exist in the first place. So there are circumstances where marriages are void under the law. Yeah. And of course, these are at the root of the law, of legal principles relating to marriage. So, for instance, marriage with underage person or between underage people, those are void. Marriage between people, between with a person who is of unsound, who is incapable of giving consent, fraudulent marriages, yeah, marriages between related people within the degrees of relations and under the act, yeah, and under the law. So those types of marriages are illegal and void. So any person can apply to court, or an aggrieved person can apply to court for an order to set aside such, to declare such marriages void and set them aside. Now, on the side of voidable marriages, so these voidable marriages would be marriages that are on the face of it valid. However, for one reason or another, the party might elect to decide to apply for an order to nullify the said marriage. So some marriages, for instance, where a marriage has not been consummated, if you do not consummate a marriage within 6 months, if you're unable to, or if the other party refuses to consummate a marriage within 3 months, that the other party can, the innocent party can apply to court to apply for an order to set aside the marriage. Also, of course, marriages where that have been procured by as a result of some form of concealment of a material fact. A material fact that is crucial in procuring the consent of the other party. So, I mean, several scenarios can come up here, as long as somebody can prove that whatever has been concealed is material enough and affected their ability to consent to this marriage. that such a kind of marriage is voidable. Now, on the other hand, fraudulent marriages procured by way of duress, or by force or fraud, those are, of course, void marriages. So it's important for people to know and not to withhold. So there is a requirement under the new law for disclosure, specific disclosure of very material facts. So material facts relating to people's substantial aspects of their health, substantial aspects of their, in my opinion, they would even stretch as far as uh, financial, uh, financial aspects of their life. And that now draws us to the next point. So before, the law did not provide for prenuptial agreements. I would say that postnuptial agreements were provided for, but not expressly. However, now the law provides for prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. So these are agreements where parties agree on several aspects. Of course, the law primarily focuses on property. However, when you look at different other jurisdictions, and in the developed world, and other jurisdictions which are where prenuptial and postnuptial agreements are provided for under the law, and are heavily used in practice, the prenuptial and post these agreements are very helpful in having parties understand what their roles, uh, core roles and obligations are within a marriage. So it would help with disclosures that are fundamental. It would help with people understanding the legal implications of marriage. So currently, people marry just for, in my opinion, a lot of people marry without any understanding of the legal implications of marriage, because at the core of it, marriage is a union of individual rights, so individual property rights and all these other rights that come up out of the marriage, relating to children, that affect any income of a person, that affect their ability to make certain decisions over their interests, over their health. So, in my opinion, this is a very progressive and much needed aspect of life, and our society at first might be a bit apprehensive to accept uh, the importance and the need for these prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. But with with a lot more education like this, with a lot more awareness and appreciation of what these agreements entail, because at the core of it, traditionally, these agreements were not codified, they were not express, but they were communicated to people by their family members and all this, and the community and religious leaders. But now, given the fact that we understand that marriage is not just a spiritual a union, it's also contractual. Uh, uh, because because even Jesus said, you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So whereas you can celebrate it spiritually, you must also abide by uh, the 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 rules of the law of the land, of the land, the rules of the land that regulate marriage. And these rules require a lot, because when you look at the act, there's a lot to unpack. It's so packed with so many things that can affect your life. Uh, so these agreements at the core provide for uh, the classification of property, uh, the mutual and express agreement by parties to uh, acquire property within a marriage and classify it either as matrimonial property, individual property, or joint property. So the law has specifically stated that a person has a right to own individual property within a marriage. So all property brought in, acquired by a person before marriage, is their individual property. However, upon marriage, all individual property that the other spouse makes a contribution to and can prove that contribution is that person gains a beneficial interest in that property and can seek a portion of that property to the extent of their contribution. So, and matrimonial property, besides of course the primary residential holding or the home, uh, where the other spouse has contributed to and can demonstrate contribution, and of course contribution has been defined. Yeah, there is monetary and non-monetary contribution, and of course all of this eventually has to be quantified in monetary terms. So when it comes to separation and attribution of whether this property amounts to matrimonial property, contribution is a key factor. So for people already married, for people uh, going to enter marriages, it's important to understand this new dynamic of 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 uh, of categorizing individual and matrimonial property in marriages. Now, when you go even further than that, interestingly, the Act goes on to even make certain presumptions in legal proceedings. So, for purposes of determining property rights and the rights of children, the Act now empowers, the law is now empowering judicial officers to impute the existence of marriages by conduct. So if you're holding yourselves out there as marriage couples, so several factors, for instance, if you're actually cohabiting, so you're having sexual intercourse, you are holding out in public as husband and wife while not married, you have children, you for a significant amount of time, for purposes of determining property rights and children, the courts are now empowered under the Act to impute the existence of marriages. However, on the flip side of the coin, it's now illegal to cohabit. And cohabitation, in a nutshell, attracts prison, prison time, and even or a fine, or both. So it's interesting to see how people are going to how society is going to cope with these new provisions. I don't know whether all of them will pass, but in my opinion, they are very good provisions. Some of them are conflicting now. Those particular aspects are conflicting. So maybe the penalty might go away, and maybe even in application it might not really apply. But I would think that it's a much needed provision that, especially in respect to categorization of property, determination of rights to property, and the rights of children, because a lot has been going around, and too many people, too many children without in single parent homes are suffering as a result of that lacuna in the law. Now, moving forward, the Act in itself goes on to make a lot of provisions in respect to the rights in distributing marriage property, matrimonial property. So it would be helpful, in my opinion, for every person before entering into any marriage, or even promising to marry someone, proposing or accepting a proposal, taking on an expensive ring and all this stuff, to seek legal advice and acquaint themselves with the provisions of the law, current as they are, and if passed and when passed, the provisions of the law that that will apply to marriage at the time. But key above all else is understanding what your rights and obligations are. So you have to be very very forward with what you disclose, because marriage has real life circumstance. I mean, real life implications in respect to your finances, your interests, your rights, your obligations. And this new law is so diverse. It has so many provision. It gives and takes a lot, that if people do not take seriously, they might get the short end of the stick. So I believe with this and more, this is just the beginning. Each one of those areas of the act that we have mentioned is just a snapshot of what the law provides. There's a lot more on prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, a lot more on marriages, a lot more on property, matrimonial property, individual property, joint property. So specifically on property, there's a very large area there. So I believe people need to uh, take very informed decisions when entering into these marriages. Until next time, we'll have a lot more discussions. In case you have any inquiries, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the Jamani-Law Institute. Thank you.